how do you say, worried about his slave. Which is another story that, you know, when you read the story in a few minutes, it's going to be weird. I mean, what is he worried? Slave is what? Property. I mean, you know, worried enough to go ask somebody to do him a favor and heal his slave. Okay, so we got a centurion here. Who else are we going to have at a border, living in a border town? Somebody who's responsible for collecting
Tax.
Who lived here? Matthew and the rest of the group. So, you know, all of this comes together when you put it together in the situation, in the political situation that we're on. One more thing to add, and that's very interesting. We're also, remember we're talking about the mix of the civilizations. We're in a Jewish fishing village, but on the hills of the Golan just to the left, and on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, were 10 city-states. City-states, Roman style, mean a city that, you know, has its own government and everything. And the 10 city-states are mentioned in the New Testament. They're called the Decapolis. So the cities of the Decapolis are spread around on the hills here on our left, on the hills to the south. What I'm trying to say is it's not a Jewish area and a, you know, Roman area. It's kind of mixed in. And at a certain stage, we know that Jesus got on the boat, and he was kind of getting weary and tired of all the people walking around after him on the shores. Got on the boat and actually went over to the other side, towards the Decapolis. We're going to stop there on the way up, but just take a beeline to the other shore on the other side, and had a very interesting experience with a guy named Legion. Guys, remember that story? Okay, and we're going to stop there on the way up. But again, this is the scenery that I need to connect you to when you think about that. Questions? So I'll tell you what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go get the rest of the bus. But,
That's our bell. That's all my mark.
the son of Zebediah, okay, may it be for him a blessing. That means somebody named Zebediah actually donated money for this pillar inside the synagogue at the time when this was a viable community, at the time of Jesus. And remember, we've been talking about minimalist and maximalist? Here's another one of those cases where we have actually the name of somebody that is mentioned in the New Testament in Capernaum, okay, living here in Capernaum. Now, I'm not saying that it's the same guy. I'm not saying that, you know, it couldn't be his uncle or his cousin. So when you make that connection, again, it's pieces of information that have you on. Here's another connection. On top of the grinder there. Those are only the big one. This is a different system. This isn't called a millstone, it's called a grinder. But that's how they look. Let's go inside the synagogue.
Are these things all excavated?
There's an olive press. I guess this, you just drop the stone into the hole, huh?
Actually happened here. Now, though I have to be truthful, I know, you know, archaeologists and the archaeology is a little bit, sometimes it's not an exact science, but the walls of the building that we see, the synagogue itself, were probably built about 400 years later. But when they excavated underneath, they found the remains of the original synagogue. So there's two synagogues actually, one on top of the other. There's the old black synagogue made of the basalt stone that we've been seeing around here, and it's right underneath us. This synagogue is probably about 400 years later. Now, one of the main problems archaeologists have is when we dig through a site like this, what do we leave and what do we take off? Remember we said there's layers and layers, one on top of the other. In order to get to the layer underneath, you have to destroy the layer that is on top. So there's always a question, okay, what layer do we leave, you know, open to the air? And the decision was made to leave the newer synagogue standing up and leave the older synagogue underneath. which means you're not standing in the actual building, but you're standing on the actual place where the events took place. You guys following me on this one? Let's start with that. So in a minute, we're going to walk over there to that corner. That's the corner where they left some of the original synagogue standing that was underneath it. Again, put this in context. You are standing on the place where Jesus banished the demons, where he healed the sick people, okay? Where he had the conversation. This is the synagogue. This is the place where the synagogue that the centurion built is actually in the same place. A couple of words about this synagogue right now. First of all, you can see it's a huge building. And what we're missing is the second floor. It was a two-story building, and you would have these pillars actually holding up the roof, and there would be a galley on both sides, where probably that's where the women would be. In Judaism, men and women do not mix, and everything that is related to Judaism. So you would have a galley with the women on top, and there was probably some kind of an ark that would have the cornerstone that would be rolling around somewhere. So again, use your imagination. Teaching, synagogue, this is probably the place. One thing to add. At the time of Jesus, the synagogue is not a house of prayer. It's not a house of worship. Why? Where's the worship taking place? Jerusalem. Jerusalem at the temple. So the synagogue, and the actual word in Hebrew, Bet Knesset, means house of gathering. The synagogue was used not only to pray it was used to teach the children how to read. It was used to have the gathering of all the men of the village. It was used for the women to decide who's making pies for the celebration this evening. This is the community house. This is where everyone would come together. That's why the synagogue is always the center of the communal life. So when Jesus is sitting in the synagogue, he's not only sitting inside the seat of religion, he's sitting inside the seat of the community, which means something about the gospel that he was teaching. Last question, quick trivia question, what's romantic about this pillar? And let me get you out of the sun and into the street.